The great chamber floated in space above Valerian Prime, spinning slowly like a giant wheel. Inside, representatives from 40 different alien species sat in a circle. Some had scales, others had fur. Some breathed oxygen. Others needed tanks of strange gases strapped to their backs. They were the Galactic Council, and today they faced their greatest fear. Captain Do-Hyun stood at the back of the human delegation, his uniform pressed and perfect. He watched as holographic images filled the center of the chamber. Star systems once bright and full of life now showed as empty black spheres. The images changed, showing fleets of warships being torn apart by things that shouldn't exist. Ambassador Yuri Sunwoo stepped forward when the images stopped. She was small compared to most aliens in the room, but she held herself with dignity. Her voice was clear and strong. "The Earth Coalition offers its full military support," she said. "Our fleet is ready to deploy. Our scientists have been studying the void phenomenon, and we believe we may have insights that could help." A sound like grinding metal filled the chamber. It took Do-Hyun a moment to realize it was laughter. Admiral Thenix rose from his seat, his insect-like body towering over the other delegates. His multiple eyes gleamed with something that looked like pity. "Your species," Thenix said slowly as if speaking to a child, "has been traveling between stars for what? 300 of your years?" He clicked his mandibles together. "My people mastered faster than light travel before your ancestors learned to make fire. The Aquilians were building Dyson spheres when your world was still covered in ice. And you think you can help us?" Other delegates made sounds of agreement. Councillor Vress, her body floating in a tank of blue liquid, spoke next. Her voice came through a translator, but the dismissive tone needed no translation. "We appreciate the gesture," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "But this threat is beyond your understanding. The void entities exist partially outside our dimension. They feed on energy itself. 3 of our most advanced battle fleets have been destroyed. Fleets with technology your species won't develop for another 1,000 years." Yuri's face remained calm, but Do-Hyun saw her hands clench slightly behind her back. She tried again. "With respect, Counselor, humanity has experience fighting enemies we don't fully understand. Our history—" "Your history," Thenix interrupted, "is filled with you fighting yourselves. Primitive weapons. Chemical explosives. You barely avoided destroying your own planet with nuclear weapons just 500 years ago." He leaned forward. "This is not a war between nations fighting over resources. This is a cosmic threat that could end all life in the galaxy. Go home, humans. Protect your one small world. Leave this fight to civilizations that understand what they're facing." The chamber erupted in agreement. Species that normally disagreed on everything, now united in their dismissal of humanity's offer. Do-Hyun felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his face neutral. Years of military discipline helped him stay still when he wanted to shout. Yuri stood silent for a moment, letting the noise die down. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter but somehow more powerful. "You're making a mistake," she said. "Throughout history, the greatest errors have come from underestimating those you consider beneath you. Humanity may be young by your standards, but we didn't survive this long by giving up when things looked impossible." "Survival on one planet," Thenix said, waving a clawed hand dismissively, "is not the same as warfare on a galactic scale. The Council has voted. Earth will not be included in the Coalition forces. You will not receive strategic information or battle coordinates. This is for your own protection. Return to your homeworld." The holographic display changed, showing the human delegation their exit route. It was a clear dismissal. Yuri bowed slightly, her face showing nothing. The human delegation turned and walked toward the exit. Do-Hyun followed, his jaw tight. In the shuttle bay, away from alien eyes, the human delegation gathered. Dr. Borinari, the chief scientist, pulled out a data pad. Her hands shook slightly with anger. 3 years, she said quietly. 3 years I've been trying to get them to listen to our research. The quantum resonance theory could be exactly what they need, but they won't even look at it because it comes from humans. Ambassador Yuri placed a hand on Bora's shoulder. "What's the status of your research? Give me the truth, not the diplomatic version." Bora took a breath. "The void entities exist partially in another dimension. That's why conventional weapons don't work well against them. Energy-based weapons, graviton beams, reality anchors, they all interact with normal space-time. But the void exists outside that. It's like trying to punch smoke." "And your solution?" Do-Hyun asked. "Quantum disruption," Bora said, her eyes lighting up despite the situation. We use quantum uncertainty itself as a weapon. Create cascading fields of unstable quantum states. It's technology the other species abandoned centuries ago because it's unpredictable and hard to control. But unpredictable might be exactly what we need against something that exists outside normal physics. Yuri looked at each of them. If your theory is right, then humanity might be the only species with the right tools to fight this thing. But the Council won't let us anywhere near the battle zones, another diplomat said. They'll freeze us out of all strategic communications. Then we don't ask permission, Do-Hyun said. Everyone turned to look at him. He met their eyes calmly. We detected the void signatures ourselves. We don't need their coordinates. We go where the void is and we do what we do best. We adapt and survive. Yuri studied him for a long moment. Captain, you're talking about taking Earth's fleet into a combat zone without authorization from the Galactic Council. That could be seen as an act of aggression. It could destroy all the diplomatic progress we've made over the last century. With respect, Ambassador, what good is diplomacy if the galaxy is destroyed? Do-Hyun straightened his uniform. My grandfather fought in Earth's last world war. He told me something before he died. He said the biggest mistake you can make in a fight is worrying more about what people think of you than about winning. The Council thinks we're too weak to matter. Let's prove them wrong. The shuttle departed from the Council station, heading back toward Earth. Inside, Bora worked on her calculations while Yuri composed a message to Earth High Command. Do-Hyun looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the void was consuming entire worlds. Millions, maybe billions, were dying while the Council argued and dismissed the one species that might have an answer. 3 days later, Do-Hyun stood on the bridge of the Earth warship Indomitable. Around him, 11 other warships floated in formation. They were smaller than the Council's massive dreadnoughts, built with human engineering and human philosophy. Not the biggest guns, but the smartest deployment. Not the thickest armor, but the fastest engines. Not the most advanced AI, but the most creative crews. Commander Gina Hanul looked up from her tactical station. Earth High Command is asking if we're certain about this, sir. They're giving us one last chance to turn back. Do-Hyun thought about the Council chamber, about the dismissive laughter, about entire star systems going dark while ancient civilizations debated and delayed. He thought about his grandfather's words. Tell High Command we're committed, he said. Set course for Sector 447 Omega. Best speed. Sir, that's right on the edge of the last reported void incursion, Gina said. I know. Do-Hyun sat in his command chair. Helm, execute. The Indomitable's engines flared bright and the human fleet jumped into the darkness. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Ahead, the void waited, and humanity, dismissed and underestimated, was about to show the galaxy what 300 years of spaceflight and 10,000 years of warfare had taught them. That when the fight matters, you don't wait for permission. You don't ask for approval. You show up and you do what needs to be done. The darkness ahead wasn't natural. Do-Hyun had seen empty space before, had stared into the void between stars on countless missions. This was different. This darkness seemed to swallow light itself, creating a perfect sphere of nothing against the backdrop of stars. Distance to the anomaly, he asked. 2 million kilometers and holding, Commander Gina reported from her station. Sir, our sensors are showing nothing. It's like there's a hole in space where a solar system should be. Dr. Boranari moved between stations on the bridge, checking readings with increasing excitement. Her short hair was messy from running her hands through it, a habit she had when deep in thought. It's not a hole, she said. It's more like a bubble. Matter isn't being destroyed. It's being converted into something else, something that exists outside our normal dimensional space. Engineer Taeyang Minho's voice came through the comm system from the engine room. Doctor, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions, but they're unlike anything in our physics models. The patterns keep shifting. It's like reality itself is sick. Do-Hyun studied the main view screen. Somewhere on the other side of that darkness, the Galactic Council was preparing their own response. They had sent brief warnings to all ships to stay away from affected zones, but they had included no coordinates, no strategic data. The message to humanity was clear. Stay out of our way. Deploy the sensor network, Do-Hyun ordered. Full quantum entanglement array. Let's see what the Council's expensive sensors can't see. Over the next 3 hours, the human fleet released thousands of small sensor probes. Unlike the energy-based scanners used by other species, human technology relied on quantum entanglement. pairs of particles that remained connected regardless of distance. The council species had abandoned this technology centuries ago as too unstable and unpredictable. But unpredictable was exactly what humanity needed. Bora watched her displays as data began flowing in. Her eyes widened. "Captain, I'm getting readings. The quantum pairs are detecting dimensional shifts inside the darkness. There are structures in there. Massive structures that exist partially in our space and partially in somewhere else. Can you get a count?" Gina asked. "At least 30 distinct signatures, maybe more. They're moving in patterns almost like they're communicating with each other." Bora's fingers flew across her console. "Captain, these things aren't just random monsters. They're organized, intelligent." Dohyun felt a chill run down his spine. An organized, intelligent enemy that existed outside normal reality. No wonder the Council's fleets had been destroyed. They were fighting an enemy they couldn't fully perceive, using weapons designed for threats that followed the normal rules of physics. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer said. "It's from the Galactic Council fleet. Admiral Thenix wants to know what we're doing here. Put him through." The insect-like admiral's face appeared on a smaller screen. His multiple eyes showed what might have been annoyance. "Captain Dohyun, I ordered all non-coalition ships to stay away from affected zones. You are violating Council security protocols." "With respect, Admiral, Earth is not part of your coalition. Your protocols don't apply to us." Dohyun kept his voice neutral. "We're conducting our own research. Research that will get you killed. Leave this area immediately. We have a major offensive planned at Threxus Prime in 6 days. We don't need amateurs getting in our way. Good luck with your offensive, Admiral." Dohyun nodded to his communications officer who cut the transmission. Gina looked at him with concern. "Sir, we just told the Council to go to hell in the politest way possible." "I know." Dohyun turned back to Bora. "Doctor, how close do we need to get for detailed scans?" 500,000 kilometers would be ideal, but nothing. "Helm, take us in. Nice and slow." All ships maintained defensive formation. The human fleet moved forward like a pack of wolves approaching unknown prey. Every meter closer gave Bora's sensors more data. She muttered to herself as information flooded her screens, occasionally letting out small sounds of discovery. At 600,000 kilometers, something changed. "Movement," Gina shouted. "Something's coming out of the darkness." The sphere of blackness rippled like water and something emerged. Dohyun's mind struggled to process what he was seeing. It had the suggestion of tentacles, but they moved in directions that shouldn't exist. It had mass, but it seemed to exist in more dimensions than 3. Looking at it too long made his eyes hurt. "All ships, defensive positions," Dohyun ordered. "Don't fire unless I give the command." The void entity moved toward them with impossible speed. One moment it was kilometers away. The next it was right on top of them. No acceleration, no transition. It simply changed position as if distance was optional. The scout ship horizon was closest. The entity reached out with something that might have been a limb, and the ship's shields flared bright. For 3 seconds the shields held. Then they collapsed like wet paper, and the horizon began to come apart. Not exploding, not melting, but unraveling. The ship's matter was being converted into something else, pulled into whatever dimensional space the entity called home. "Get us between that thing and the horizon," Dohyun ordered. "Minho, charge the quantum disruptors, all batteries." "Sir, they're still experimental." "I said charge them." The Indomitable surged forward, placing itself between the entity and the dying scout ship. Around them, the other warships formed a protective wall. Engineer Minho's voice came through tight with stress. "Disruptors charged. Power levels are unstable but holding. Captain, I have no idea if this will work. Only one way to find out." Dohyun gripped his armrest. "Fire." The quantum disruptors weren't like normal weapons. They didn't shoot energy beams or missiles. Instead, they projected fields of destabilized quantum uncertainty, areas where the basic rules of reality became unclear. Electrons existed in multiple states simultaneously. Particles flickered in and out of existence. Cause and effect became negotiable. The fields washed over the void entity, and for the first time something incredible happened. The entity recoiled. Its impossible form flickered and distorted like a bad hologram. The tentacle things that weren't quite tentacles withdrew from the horizon. The entity's presence seemed to thin, become less solid. A sound echoed through space that shouldn't have been possible in vacuum, a high-pitched shriek that made every human on every ship grab their heads in pain. "It's working," Bora shouted. "The quantum uncertainty is disrupting its dimensional anchor. It can't maintain its partial existence in our space. All ships fire," Do-hyun ordered.
Focus your disruptors on that thing.
11 other warships opened fire, their quantum disruptor arrays adding to the chaos. The void entity's form became more and more unstable. For several seconds, it seemed like they might actually destroy it. Then it fled. The entity collapsed in on itself and retreated back into the darkness. The sensor readings showed it moving deep into the sphere of converted space, back to wherever these things came from. Silence filled the bridge. Do-hyun realized he was breathing hard, his heart pounding. They had done it. They had hurt something that the Council's most advanced weapons couldn't touch. "Damage report," he said when he could speak normally. "The horizon is gone, sir," Gina said quietly. 43 crew members. Hull integrity failure before they could evacuate. Do-hyun closed his eyes briefly. 43 people who had followed his orders into the unknown. He added their faces to the collection of ghosts he carried. The price of command. "Sir," Bora said urgently. "I'm detecting more movement in the darkness. The quantum sensors are showing, Captain, there are dozens more entities in there, maybe hundreds, and they're all waking up." The view screen showed the sphere of darkness beginning to pulse and ripple in multiple places. Whatever they had done to that one entity, it had gotten the attention of all the others. "We showed them we can hurt them," Gina said. "Now they know we're a threat." Do-hyun stared at the increasingly active darkness. In 6 days, Admiral Thenix would launch his massive offensive at a different location. The Council had 847 warships, reality-bending weapons, technology that humanity couldn't hope to match. They would attack in overwhelming force while humanity's small fleet stood here, outnumbered by an enemy they barely understood. But they had one thing the Council didn't. They knew how to hurt these things. "Open a transmission," Do-hyun ordered. "All frequencies, maximum broadcast. Send to Earth the Council and anyone else who's listening." "Channel open, sir." Do-hyun took a breath. "This is Captain Do-hyun of the Earth warship Indomitable. To the Galactic Council, to Admiral Thenix, to anyone fighting the Void. We found a way to hurt them. Quantum disruption technology. We're transmitting all combat data and technical specifications on this channel. We're outnumbered here, probably outgunned. But we're holding this position. Send everyone you have. We'll keep these things busy until you get here." He paused. "And Admiral? You were wrong about humanity. We don't run from fights just because they're impossible. We run toward them." Do-hyun out, the transmission ended. Around the Indomitable, the human fleet formed up in defensive positions. In the darkness ahead, things that shouldn't exist began to move. And on ships throughout the fleet, human crews checked their weapons and prepared to show the galaxy what impossible really meant. 6 days passed in tense waiting. The human fleet remained at their position, studying the void while maintaining a careful distance. Dr. Bora worked around the clock, analyzing every scrap of data they had gathered. Engineer Minho modified and improved the quantum disruptors, making them more stable, more powerful. Commander Gina drilled the crews in combat exercises until they could coordinate defensive patterns in their sleep, and Captain Do-hyun listened to radio silence from the Galactic Council. His transmission had been received. He knew this because the Council had sent one brief message in response. "Your interference is noted. Stay clear of Threxus Prime. Council forces will handle the situation." Nothing more. No questions about the quantum disruptors. No requests for tactical cooperation. Just dismissal. Pride, Do-hyun thought, could be the galaxy's death sentence. On the 6th day, the battle began. Threxus Prime was 8 light-years away from the human fleet's position, but their quantum sensors could detect the massive energy signatures. The Council had assembled 847 warships, the largest battle fleet in recorded history. They came from 40 different species, each contributing their most advanced weapons and their best crews. Gina played the intercepted transmissions on the bridge speakers. Admiral Thenix's voice echoed through the Indomitable, full of confidence and barely concealed arrogance. "All ships maintain formation. Reality anchors will deploy on my mark. Dimensional artillery batteries prepare for synchronized fire. Today, we show these creatures why the Galactic Council has kept peace for 10,000 years." Bora bit her lip, staring at her sensor readings. They're using the same approach that failed before. Energy weapons, dimensional manipulations, reality stabilization. It's all based on the same physics principles. If the void adapted once, they'll adapt again, Do-hyun finished. How long until we know if the Council's plan works? Based on the energy signatures, the first engagement should happen in about 30 minutes. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. Do-hyun walked the corridors of the Indomitable, talking to crew members, checking preparations. He found pilot Erin Yoongi in the fighter bay, running pre-flight checks on her small combat craft for the third time that day. "Expecting company, Lieutenant?" Do-hyun asked. Erin looked up, her young face serious. "Sir, every instinct I have is screaming that something's wrong. The Council's fleet is too far away for us to support. If things go bad, then we make a decision." Do-hyun placed a hand on her shoulder. "Get some rest. I have a feeling we're going to need every pilot sharp and ready very soon." Back on the bridge, Gina was studying tactical displays when the first reports came through. Her face went pale. "Captain, the Council fleet is engaging. Initial strikes appear effective. Their reality anchors are holding multiple void entities in normal space, and the dimensional artillery is— Wait, something's changing." Bora's station lit up with warnings. "The void signatures are merging. Multiple entities are combining into a single mass. Captain, I've never seen anything like this. The quantum readings are off the scale." The intercepted transmissions became chaotic. Calm tactical orders turned into shouts and screams. Admiral Thenix's voice cut through the noise, no longer confident but edged with something that might have been fear. "All ships, fall back. The entity is feeding on our weapons. Dimensional artillery is ineffective. Reality anchors are failing. All ships, static." Then silence. Gina's hands shook as she worked her console. "Captain, I'm reading massive power fluctuations from Threxus Prime. Hull breaches across multiple vessels. Life support failures. Sir, the Council fleet is being destroyed." "How long did the battle last?" Do-hyun asked quietly. Gina checked her readings twice as if not believing them. 12 minutes. 847 warships, 12 minutes. The bridge fell silent. Every person there understood what this meant. The galaxy's most powerful military force, with weapons and technology far beyond human capability, had been annihilated in less time than it took to eat lunch. "Sir, we're receiving a distress call," the communications officer said. "It's Admiral Thenix. Audio only, the signal is weak." "Put it through." Static filled the bridge, then a voice that barely sounded like the proud admiral who had dismissed humanity 6 days ago. Thenix was gasping, his words broken by what might have been pain. "This is Admiral Thenix. Flagship Sovereign. Life support failing. Crews evacuating. To anyone who can hear this, stay away from Threxus, the entity. It adapted. Nothing works. We were wrong. Humans were right. Tell them we're sorry." The signal died. Do-hyun stood motionless, processing the implications. The Council's military might had been based on the assumption that they were the most advanced, the most powerful. That assumption had just cost millions of lives. And somewhere in the wreckage of Threxus Prime, the void entity that had destroyed them was still active. "Captain," Bora's voice was soft. "Our quantum sensors can detect the entity from here. It's massive. Easily 50 times larger than the one we encountered. And it's consolidating, gathering more mass from the destroyed ships. Distance to Threxus Prime? 8 light years. At maximum warp, 6 hours. "Sir, you can't be serious," Gina said. "We have 12 ships, 12. The Council had 847 and they lasted 12 minutes. What can we possibly do?" Do-hyun thought about the transmission, about Admiral Thenix dying in the wreckage of his flagship, admitting that humans had been right, about the millions of dead who had followed leaders too proud to listen, about the entity growing stronger, feeding on the debris of the galaxy's greatest fleet. He thought about his grandfather, who had fought in wars that left Earth scarred and broken, who had survived by being smarter, faster, more adaptable than enemies with superior weapons, who had taught a young boy that the size of the fight doesn't matter as much as the size of the heart doing the fighting. "We can show up," Do-hyun said finally. "We can look at impossible odds and go anyway because that's what humans do. We're not the strongest or the most advanced, but we're the ones who fight when fighting seems pointless." He turned to face his bridge crew. "Dr. Bora, prepare all quantum disruptor data for continuous transmission. If we don't make it, at least the galaxy will have the information. Commander Gina, plot a course to Threxus Prime. Maximum warp speed. Engineer Minho, I want every disruptor array at peak efficiency. Sir, Gina said, this is suicide. Probably. Do-hyun sat in his command chair. But millions just died because the council was too proud to listen to ideas from a younger species. If we don't try, if we don't show the galaxy that there's another way to fight this thing, then those deaths mean nothing. The Void wins not because it's unbeatable, but because everyone was too scared or too proud to try something different. He activated the ship-wide intercom. This is the captain. In 6 hours we will arrive at Threxus Prime to engage the Void entity that destroyed the Council fleet. I won't lie to you. The odds are bad, very bad, but we have something the Council didn't. We know how to hurt these things. Our weapons work when theirs failed. They had power in numbers. We have innovation and courage. Every person on this fleet volunteered to be here. No one forced us to leave Earth, to reject the Council's dismissal, to fly into danger. We chose this. So now I'm asking you to choose one more time. Choose to show the galaxy what humanity means. Choose to fight when retreat makes more sense. Choose to be remembered not as the species that was too young to matter, but as the species that saved the galaxy when the ancient powers failed. He paused. Helm, execute the jump. All ships follow us in. The Indomitable's engines flared bright, bending space-time around the hull. One by one, the other 11 human warships followed. They formed a small convoy of hope racing through the darkness toward what remained of Threxus Prime. On the bridge, Bora was sending continuous transmissions back to Earth. Technical specifications, tactical observations, everything they had learned about the Void. If they failed, at least humanity's knowledge would survive. Gina coordinated with the other ship captains, developing combat strategies for an enemy they had barely faced. They had hurt one Void entity. Could they hurt something 50 times larger? Could 12 ships do what 847 could not? Engineer Minho pushed the quantum disruptors past their designed limits, squeezing every bit of power he could from the systems. In the fighter bays, Erin and her squadron prepared their small craft, knowing that agility might be their only advantage. And Captain Do-hyun sat in his chair, watching the timer count down. 6 hours to Threxus Prime. 6 hours to prepare for a battle they would probably lose. 6 hours to prove that humanity deserved to be in the galaxy, not because they were the strongest, but because they were the bravest. The Indomitable jumped through space, racing toward impossible odds. Behind them, Earth waited for news. Ahead, the Void entity fed on the remains of the Council's pride. And between them, 12 human ships carried the hope that courage and innovation might triumph where power and arrogance had failed. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's offer to help. Now in the wreckage of Threxus Prime, they were about to see what happened when you underestimated the species that had clawed its way up from a single war-torn planet to touch the stars. The human fleet dropped out of warp at the edge of what had once been the Threxus system. What greeted them was a graveyard. Thousands of pieces of debris floated in the darkness, all that remained of 847 warships. Entire sections of hull drifted past, some still glowing with residual energy. Emergency beacons flickered weakly from escape pods scattered throughout the wreckage. And in the center of it all, feeding on the remains, was the entity. Do-hyun had seen the smaller entity they had fought before. This one was different not just in size, but in presence. It filled space with wrongness, a massive tear in reality that spread across kilometers. Looking at it made his mind hurt, made his eyes water. It had the suggestion of a form, tentacles or tendrils or something. But they moved in directions that human perception couldn't quite follow. Mother of God. Commander, Gina whispered. Dr. Bora's hands flew across her console. It's still consolidating mass from the destroyed ships. The quantum readings suggest it's grown by at least 60% since the initial battle. Captain, it's learning, adapting. Every ship it consumes makes it stronger and more stable in our dimension. Life signs? Do-hyun asked, forcing his eyes away from the entity. Multiple escape pods throughout the debris field. Thousands of survivors, maybe tens of thousands. But their life support won't last more than a few hours. Gina brought up a tactical display. Sir, if we're going to evacuate them, we need to do it now. But that means getting close to that thing. Do-hyun studied the situation. 12 ships against a monster that had destroyed 847. Thousands of aliens who needed rescue, scattered through a debris field that the entity was actively feeding on. No reinforcements. No support. Just humanity's small fleet and a choice. Run and live or fight and probably die. All ships formation Delta 7, he ordered. We're going in. Fighter squadrons deploy. Engineer Minho, charge all quantum disruptors to maximum. Dr. Bora, I need you to identify the weakest point in that thing's dimensional structure. Captain, there might not be a weak point, Bora said. Then we make one. Helm, take us in, nice and steady. The Indomitable led the fleet forward, moving through the debris field like sharks through blood in the water. Around them, the other 11 warships spread out in a protective formation. From their launch bays, dozens of small fighter craft emerged, led by pilot Aaron Jungi's squadron. The entity noticed them immediately. Parts of its massive form turned toward the approaching fleet, tentacles of unreality reaching out through space. Where they touched debris, the metal didn't melt or break, it simply stopped being, converted into whatever matter existed in the entity's dimension. All ships. Evasive pattern, Omega, Commander Gina called out. Don't let those things touch you. The fleet scattered, each ship following a chaotic, unpredictable course through the wreckage. It was a tactic humanity had developed, fighting each other. When the enemy has superior weapons, be impossible to hit. The entity's tentacles lashed out, but they moved in straight lines, following predictable physics. The human ships dove and weaved through three-dimensional space, using the debris as cover. Aaron's fighter squadron darted ahead, moving so fast that the entity couldn't track them effectively. Her voice came through the calm despite flying at insane speeds just meters from destroyed warships. Squadron Alpha, begin beacon deployment. Mark your coordinates and drop on my command. The fighters scattered through the debris field, each one releasing small quantum resonance beacons at precisely calculated positions. It was Dr. Bora's plan. Create a network of quantum disturbance around the entity. Use the instability itself as a cage. But they needed time to deploy enough beacons. And time was something they didn't have. A tentacle caught one of the human destroyers, the Defiant. The ship's shields flared and held for 3 seconds before collapsing. The tentacle wrapped around the hull, and the Defiant began to come apart. The crew had just enough time to eject their escape pods before the ship dissolved into nothing. Indomitable, all disruptors target that tentacle, Do-hyun ordered. Cut it off. The quantum disruptor arrays fired, projecting fields of impossible uncertainty toward the entity. Where the fields touched the tentacle, its form flickered and distorted. The entity pulled back, the tentacle withdrawing. The Defiant's escape pods drifted free, saved by seconds. It works, Engineer Minho shouted from the engine room. But Captain, we're burning through power reserves faster than projected. At this rate, we can maintain fire for maybe 20 minutes before we have to shut down and recharge. 20 minutes. Do-hyun looked at the tactical display. Aaron's squadron had deployed maybe 40% of the beacons they needed. The rescue shuttles had barely started evacuating survivors from the debris field. 20 minutes wasn't enough. Then we make it enough, he said. All ships focus fire. Keep that thing's attention on us. Give the fighters time to complete the network. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. 12 ships pouring quantum distortion into the entity, their weapons creating cascading waves of uncertainty that made reality itself unstable. The entity recoiled, its massive form flickering like a bad hologram. For a moment, Do-hyun thought they might actually hurt it. Then the entity adapted. Its form shifted, parts of it moving deeper into its own dimension where the quantum fields couldn't reach as effectively. It learned from the attack, adjusted its existence to minimize the damage. The tentacles changed their movement patterns, becoming more random, harder to predict. The entity was getting smarter with every second. Sir, it's learning faster than we can adapt, Gina reported. Our weapons are losing effectiveness. Bora was frantically working her console. The entity is modifying its dimensional frequency to resist the quantum disruption. It's like it's developing an immunity. Captain, at this rate, our weapons will be completely ineffective in 10 minutes. 10 minutes, not 20. The timeline was collapsing. Do-hyun watched the tactical display, watched Aaron's fighters darting through the debris, watched the rescue shuttles trying to reach escape pods before the entity consumed them, watched his fleet small and outgunned, holding the line against something that should have been impossible to fight. An idea formed, born from desperation and the kind of thinking that came from 10,000 years of humans fighting battles they shouldn't win. Dr. Bora, what happens if we reverse the quantum disruption? She looked up, confused. Reverse it? Captain, that would destabilize our own reality. create a pocket of extreme quantum uncertainty that would affect our ships as much as the entity. But would it hurt the entity? It would. Yes, potentially. If we created a large enough field of reversed quantum state, it might force the entity fully into our dimension where it can't adapt as easily. But sir, our ships can't survive in that kind of environment. Matter becomes unstable, energy flows become unpredictable. Our ships can't survive, Do-hyun interrupted. But our weapon systems are already designed to function in quantum uncertainty. What if we pushed all our power into creating one massive disruption field, centered on the Indomitable? Understanding dawned on Gina's face, followed immediately by horror. Captain, you're talking about turning us into a quantum bomb. Using our own reactor to create a field so unstable that it forces the entity into our dimension. But we'd be at the center of it. We'd have no shields, no propulsion, no defense. One hit and we're gone. I know. Do-hyun activated the fleet-wide comm. All ships, this is Captain Do-hyun. We're changing tactics. The Indomitable will create a quantum disruption field centered on our position. All ships fall back to safe distance and prepare to focus fire on the entity once it's forced into our dimension. Fighter squadrons complete the beacon network. We're going to need that cage once this thing is fully here. Sir, this is suicide, the captain of the destroyer Resilient said over the comm. It's a chance, Do-hyun corrected. Better than watching it adapt until our weapons are useless. Better than running while thousands of survivors die in those escape pods. We didn't come here to play it safe. We came here to do what the Council couldn't, win against impossible odds. He turned to his bridge crew. His people. Commander Gina, who had served with him for 7 years. Dr. Bora, who had believed in her quantum theory when everyone else called it impossible. The communications officer, the helm officer, every person on the bridge who had followed him into this. I'm not ordering anyone to stay, he said quietly. Escape pods are ready. Anyone who wants to evacuate has 60 seconds. No judgment, no shame. You've all already proven your courage by being here. No one moved. Gina straightened in her chair. Bora's hand steadied on her console. The helm officer checked his instruments. The communications officer cleared his throat. Sir, Gina said, we're with you. All of us, that's what humanity means, right? We face the impossible together. Do-hyun felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. He nodded, not trusting his voice for a moment. Engineer Minho, he said finally. Route all reactor power to the quantum disruptors. Every last bit of energy we have. Configure them for reverse disruption on my mark. Routing power now, Minho responded. Captain will be dead in space. No shields, no weapons, no engines. Just the disruption field. Then we'd better make it count. All ships fall back. Fighters, complete your network. We're going to bring this thing into our reality, and when we do, we're going to cage it and kill it. The other 11 ships pulled away, moving to safer positions. Aaron's squadron went into overdrive, her fighters screaming through the debris to place the last beacons. The rescue shuttles grabbed as many escape pods as they could and ran for the fleet, and the Indomitable sat alone in the darkness, facing a monster from beyond reality, about to become the most unstable point in space. Reactor at maximum, Minho reported. All power routed to disruptors. Ready on your command, Captain. Do-hyun took one last look at his crew, at Earth 8 light years away, at the stars he had loved since childhood. For humanity, he said. Activate the field. The Indomitable's reactor core unleashed its full power in a direction it was never designed for. Instead of creating clean, stable energy, it poured everything into generating pure quantum chaos. A sphere of impossible physics expanded from the ship, growing larger with every second. Reality inside the sphere became negotiable. Light moved at different speeds depending on which way you looked. Time flowed unevenly. Matter existed in multiple states at once. It was the kind of environment that would tear apart any normal ship in seconds. But the quantum disruptors had been designed to function in exactly this kind of chaos. They were built for uncertainty, thrived in it. And now, pushed beyond their limits, they turned the space around the Indomitable into something that shouldn't exist. The void entity sensed the change immediately. Its tentacles pulled back, its massive form trying to retreat into its own dimension, but the quantum field was expanding too fast, catching the entity before it could fully withdraw. For the first time since the entity had awakened, it was trapped. Do-hyun watched from the bridge as systems failed around him. The lights flickered, then went dark except for emergency power. Gravity became unstable. making everyone feel alternately heavy and weightless. Displays showed impossible readings, temperatures that were both freezing and burning, energy levels that read as negative numbers, timestamps that ran backwards. "It's working," Dr. Bora said, her voice strange in the fluctuating air. "The entity is being forced fully into our dimensional space. It can't maintain its partial existence. It's here, completely here, and it's vulnerable." Through the viewport, Do-hyun could see the entity changing. Its impossible form was solidifying, becoming more real, more physical. It writhed and twisted, clearly in pain, clearly unable to adapt as it had before. The quantum chaos prevented it from shifting its dimensional frequency. "All ships," Do-hyun managed to say into the comm, though he wasn't sure if the transmission was getting through the quantum interference. "Hit it now. Everything you have." Before it learns to adapt, he didn't know if they heard him. But a moment later, 11 human warships opened fire. Quantum disruptors from every remaining ship poured destruction into the entity. Without its dimensional protection, it was just matter. Strange matter, impossible matter, but matter that could be disrupted and destroyed. The beacons that Aron's squadron had placed activated, creating a cage of quantum resonance that prevented the entity from expanding or retreating. The entity fought back. Its tentacles lashed out, more solid now, more dangerous. One caught the destroyer resilient, crushing its hull like paper. Another wrapped around a frigate, pulling it toward what might have been a mouth. But the human ships kept firing, kept moving, kept fighting with the desperation of those who know this is their last chance. And slowly, impossibly, the entity began to die. Its form started to break apart, chunks of unmatter dissolving into energy as the quantum weapons found their mark. The cage of resonance beacons prevented it from consolidating, from reforming, from adapting. It had consumed entire fleets, had existed for who knows how long in the spaces between dimensions, but now it was trapped and vulnerable and dying. The entity let out a sound, that same impossible shriek that echoed in vacuum and in minds. Then with a final convulsion it collapsed. The massive form imploded, falling in on itself, being pulled back through whatever crack in reality it had come from. The quantum sensors showed its signature fading, weakening, finally disappearing completely. Silence filled the battlefield. The wreckage of 2 fleets floated in the darkness. Escape pods drifted among the debris, and in the center of it all the Indomitable hung dead in space, its reactor depleted, its systems offline. In the dark bridge, lit only by emergency lights, Do-hyun and his crew sat in stunned silence. They had done it. 12 ships against a monster that destroyed 847. They had done what the galaxy's most advanced civilizations thought was impossible. "Sir," Gina said softly, "we're receiving transmissions, multiple channels. From the rescue shuttles, from the surviving council ships, from... Captain, we're receiving messages from all over the galaxy." Everyone was watching. As auxiliary power slowly came back online, the communication systems activated. The bridge filled with voices. Admirals and captains from dozens of species, all saying versions of the same thing. "Thank you. You saved us. We were wrong. We're sorry." One voice cut through the others. Admiral Thennick, still alive somehow, transmitting from an escape pod. "Captain Do-hyun," the insectoid admiral said, his voice weak but clear. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, on behalf of every species that doubted you, I apologize. We were blind. We mistook your youth for weakness, your different approach for ignorance. You saved millions of lives today, including mine. The Council owes humanity a debt we can never fully repay." Before Do-hyun could respond, other ships began arriving. Not just rescue vessels, but warships from Council fleets that had been held in reserve. They had watched the battle through quantum sensors. They had seen 12 human ships do what 847 could not. And now they came, too late to help fight, but in time to help rescue. The next month was a blur. The Indomitable limped back to Earth orbit, too damaged to fully repair. Her crew received medals from governments both human and alien. Dr. Bora's quantum disruption technology became the foundation for the galaxy's new defense systems. Engineer Minho led teams of scientists from 40 species, teaching them how to build and maintain quantum weapons. Commander Gina was promoted to admiral and given command of a new fleet. Not just human ships, but vessels from across the galaxy, all crewed by mixed species working together. Pilot Aron became an instructor, training the next generation of fighter pilots in human tactical doctrine. and Captain Doyon found himself at the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber, the same place where humanity had been dismissed and laughed at just months before. But the room was different now. The 40 species didn't look at him with condescension. They looked at him with respect. Ambassador Yuri Sunwoo stood beside him as the council formally invited Earth to join as a full member, not as a junior partner, but as an equal. More than that, they asked humanity to lead the new Void Defense Initiative. They wanted human thinking, human innovation, human courage at the heart of galactic security. After the ceremony, Admiral Thenix approached Do-Yun privately. The insectoid commander moved slowly, still recovering from his injuries. "Captain," Thenix said, "I owe you a personal apology. I dismissed your species based on your age in the galaxy. I ignored your offer of help out of pride. That pride cost millions of lives." "And taught the galaxy a valuable lesson," Do-Hyun replied. "Sometimes the newest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. Sometimes inexperience means you haven't learned what's impossible yet." Thenix made a sound that might have been a laugh. "My species has traveled the stars for 30,000 years. We thought that made us wise. But wisdom isn't about how long you've existed. It's about learning from your mistakes." He paused. "Captain, what made you come to Threxus Prime? You knew it was suicide. Your ships couldn't match our numbers or our technology. Why did you come?" Do-Hyun thought about his grandfather, about Earth's long history of war and survival, about 300 years of humanity pushing into space against all odds. "Because someone had to," he said simply. "Because running away when things look impossible isn't who we are. Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting wars on one planet. Learning that sometimes the only way to win is to try what everyone says is crazy. We didn't beat the void entity because we were stronger or smarter. We beat it because we were willing to sacrifice everything for a chance, no matter how small." "You sacrificed nearly half your fleet," Thenix observed. "We did, and I carry every name, every face of those who died." Do-Hyun's voice was heavy. "That's the cost of victory. But if we hadn't come, if we hadn't tried, everyone would have died. Not just our 12 ships, but the thousands in those escape pods. And eventually everyone else as the void consumed the galaxy. We chose to pay the price so others wouldn't have to." That night, Do-Hyun stood in the observation deck of the Lunar Command Station, looking down at Earth, the planet that had birthed humanity, that had nearly destroyed itself in wars, that had somehow produced a species crazy enough to fly 12 ships into certain death. Ambassador Yuri joined him at the window. "The Council wants you to take command of the Defense Initiative. They're offering you rank equal to their supreme commanders. And what does Earth want? Earth wants what's best for the galaxy. But more than that, Earth wants to know if you can handle it. After everything you've been through, after watching so many die." "I can handle it," Do-Hyun said. "Because those deaths have to mean something. We didn't survive just to go home and forget. We survived to make sure it never happens again, to make sure the galaxy is ready next time. Next time, Dr. Bora's research suggests the void entities aren't gone, just retreated. There are more cracks in reality forming, more threats emerging from places we don't understand. The galaxy needs to be ready, and they need someone who knows how to fight when all the safe options are gone." Far above them, the new ships of the Defense Initiative were being constructed, sleek vessels that combined human quantum technology with alien engineering, fast and maneuverable, designed for a new kind of warfare against enemies that didn't follow normal rules. Each crew was mixed, humans working alongside species that had once dismissed them, learning from each other, preparing together. Do-Hyun thought about the council chamber, about the laughter that had greeted humanity's offer to help. He thought about Admiral Thenix's dismissal, about being told to go home and protect their one small world. He thought about the indomitable hanging dead in space, about the impossible victory, about the price paid in human lives. "Do you think they'll ever underestimate us again?" Yuri asked. Do-Hyun smiled slightly. "No, but that's not why we did it. We didn't prove ourselves to gain respect or status. We did it because when someone needs help, when the galaxy is in danger, humanity answers. That's who we are. That's who we'll always be." A new transmission came through, a distress call from a mining colony in the Outer Rim. Something unknown was attacking, something that the local defense forces couldn't handle. Earth Command was already mobilizing, and Admiral Gina's mixed species fleet was preparing to launch. "Looks like next time is already here," Yuri said. Do-hyun straightened his uniform. Then we'd better get moving. The galaxy thought humanity wouldn't come when called. We proved them wrong once. Time to prove it again. He left the observation deck, heading toward the command center. Behind him, Earth spun in the darkness, small and fragile and beautiful. Ahead, another impossible fight waited. But humanity had learned long ago that impossible just meant nobody had tried hard enough yet. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's offer to help. They had dismissed the young species as too weak, too inexperienced, too naive to matter. But when the void came, when the ancient fleets fell, when all hope seemed lost, 12 human ships had answered a call that no one had made. And the galaxy would never forget.